The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendour of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendour of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow. And a highway will be there. It will be called the way of holiness. It will be for those who walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there, but only the redeemed will walk there, and those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. And the second reading comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 2 to 11. Matthew 11, starting at verse 2. When John, who was in prison, heard about the deeds of the Messiah, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" Jesus replied, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me." As John's disciples were leaving, Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed swayed by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear fine clothes are in kings' palaces. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' Truly I tell you, among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. Yet whoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he."
Let me pray and then let's get into this passage. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you promise to be our strength and our shield. So I pray that as we learn to love and know you more, that we would trust more on you, that we would rest more on you, that we would seek your will for our lives more, that we would step out more in faith, and that we would love more, love those around us more, because you loved us first, you chose us first, you died for us first. May your name be praised. Amen. Week 3 of Advent, continuing in Isaiah chapter 35. Now this passage starts, like most of Isaiah, in a bit of a wilderness perspective, but looking forward with hope, which is a great thing. We as believers should have hope. So I thought I would start by looking and discussing wildernesses a little bit. Those desert experiences or times in the valley, shall we say. Now, there are different types of wilderness experiences. There are the very real, tangible ones, like being in a desert where there is maybe water is scarce, or food is scarce, or shelter is hard to find, where you don't know where your next meal's coming from, or you're concerned for your physical safety. Then there are metaphorical wastelands, those times when we feel distant from God or from our fellow believers. Many of us who have been believers for a long time and been in church for a long time remember times when we've sat in church and felt like we were the only person in the room. Those times where you feel where you wonder, why am I doing this? Why am I here? But there's something that keeps you going. And then there are relative wildernesses of our own creation. Christmas time is a perfect time for those. I remember as a child when you're anticipating a certain toy or gift or something you've been longing for a long time, and you've been promised and you know it's coming, and all of a sudden all of the toys in your room seem boring and worthless. You know, you walk into you see a child in their bedroom surrounded by toys, and they're just standing there and say, "Why don't you play something?" So I've got nothing to play with. Because something we're looking forward to, because we're looking forward to something, it means everything around us appears less full of life and joy. Now, that's not always a bad thing. You know, flash forward, looking forward to the second coming of Christ, looking forward to the renewed heavens and renewed earth. That is a good thing, to expect those times to be better than the times we have now, to long for them. You know, that we have multiple examples in the Bible, particularly the Apostle Paul, of longing for that time, but understanding that this present is necessary. But Isaiah looks forward with a measure of hope. But he provides an admonition in this in this desert space. Verses 3 and 4, which are kind of the key to this talk today. To strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. To say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear, your God will come. Now, this passage I thought was quite poignant for me in my current situation as I step into military chaplaincy. Because the deployed life of the sailor, soldier or airman is itself a wilderness experience. You're disconnected from family and home, sometimes with concerns for your physical safety, whether that be in rough seas or hostile lands. Communication with loved ones is difficult. You may be, particularly in the Navy environment, where you're stuck in a oversized tin can with, in the frigate sense, 183 other people, and you can't get away from them. You see the same people every day, and what if they're people that you don't really get on with? You have to work every single day next to a person that really grinds your gears. So in chaplaincy, we get to minister to those who are undergoing tough times. Now, not all times are tough. I don't know if you saw a couple of years ago, there was a video doing the rounds of, what you can achieve in a week in the Navy. And they've got, playing football and going scuba diving and doing all these fun things, which we actually did. There was a week-long period where we actually did all of those things, but that was 1 week out of 2 years. But these verses, strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way, say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Let me say, the word here, strengthen, can be translated encourage. So while we can be tempted to look at it from we tend to, as humans, when you say, strengthen feeble hands, just put on a wrist guard or put a knee brace on or just toughen up. Stiff upper lip, as it were. Suck it up, princess, and march on. But translating it as encourage brings a different sense. One that is, I believe, really close to the chaplain's heart. to be next to someone who is going through that tough time and encourage them, saying there is light coming. When we think steady the knees, it's not, one person strapping a knee brace on themselves. It's someone coming alongside. To me, this is how I see it, and putting an arm around them and saying, here, let me take some of your burden for you. Or Simpson and his donkey, here, let me carry you for a while. You don't have to bear this burden alone. It is the amazing privilege of the chaplain to be in that space for all of ship's company. Now, I will talk particularly to the Navy today. The chaplain is the one person on the entire ship to whom anyone on the ship can come and say, I need to unburden my heart. Can I do that with you? I'm struggling with this thing. Can you hear my story? Can you walk with me in this? The chaplain there with no agenda other than the well-being of the person across from whom they sit. It is a rare thing in the military because everyone has an agenda. Mission is first. So often the well-being of the individual is only counted in relation to the mission at hand. But the chaplain has a privilege to step outside of that and see the individual and care for them regardless of the mission. But again, it presents a challenge because, particularly in the Navy sense, we are all quite literally in the same boat. The chaplain, like everyone else on the ship, can't go home to family that night. The chaplain has the same access to internet as everyone else on the ship. When everyone turns to the chaplain with their problems and their troubles, to whom does the chaplain turn? That is why the closing words of the second half of what I was reading in verse 4 is so important. Your God will come. Or, as I would prefer to translate it, behold, your God comes. Look and see your God comes. Because that is the word that is there. It can be translated, behold, look, see your God. It is a challenge to, while there is a perception that chaplains are somewhat stoic and they are the calm duck on the frenetic pond, so to speak, to force that upon yourself and to put on a calm, strong exterior and not actually finding true strength somewhere deeper. Because the truth is that, as one of my lecturers once said, who was a professional counsellor, she goes, I have all of these skills and techniques and whatever, but I know I am not the cure. Only God can be the cure. And it is the same for us, that while we have gifts and tools and techniques and all these other things, it is only God who is our true strength. In the Matthew passage, when Jesus is talking to the crowd after John's disciples left, and he says, who did you go to see? Did you go to see a reed swayed by the wind or a man dressed in fine clothes? It makes me ask, who do people see when they look at me? Who will they see when they look at me as a chaplain? Particularly as I look at examples of chaplains who have gone before, both positive examples and less positive examples. Will they look at me and see a reed swayed by the wind, someone whose attitude changes according to the sway of public opinion or to pressure from command or external forces? Or someone who is firm on what they believe and what they know to be their priority in their job, to which they were appointed, regardless of what command thinks their job actually should be. Walking that tension can be challenging. Do they look at me and see someone dressed in fine clothes? I mean, you have to admit, Navy uniform is pretty nice. But another side of that is, do they look and see education or qualifications? There are chaplains out there with multiple PhDs and degrees in psychology and counselling and a whole range of different things. But people don't come to us for our education or our prestige or our placement in the world of academia or our position in the church. Or do they look at us and see what it says here of John the Baptist, a messenger of God? Now, in the early days of this journey, I was assured by someone who is no longer serving in defence that proselytising, that is talking openly about our faith, was not something that chaplains did or could do. I have since been assured, much to my satisfaction, that that is a blatant lie. That our faith is the exact reason why we are employed. What we believe is why we are appointed. That our faith can, does and should inform every aspect of our service, because that is where our strength comes from. That is where our moral compass lies. That is where our hope is. And it is that hope that we then can give to others. Now, yes, that means not Bible bashing people, not saying, if you don't give your life to Christ, you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. But being open that my strength, the reason I can do what I do, the reason that you can come to me and feel helped, is because there is something greater than me. It is because my hope, my trust, is in the Creator of the world. The one who cares so much that he gave his only Son to die so that we could have relationship. Not as a serf with a master, but as brother with brother, child with their loving father. It is an opportunity to be able to say, be strong, do not fear, because my God comes. My God is here. He is real. He is my hope, and he can be yours. Now, I hope for everyone here that he is already your hope. That just as we look forward to Christmas and we look forward to puddings and fruit mince pies and brandy custard and opening presents and spending time with family, we look forward to celebrating the gift that is Jesus Christ. That gift that gives us hope, that gives us life. And looking forward to the fulfillment of that promise when he comes again, when earth is renewed, when, just as Isaiah looks forward to, that there will be no more tear, that the earth will be refreshed and joyous. So who does the world see when they look at us? I would pray that as they look at each one of us, they see people of hope. Not people that have their lives all together, but despite of how messy their lives can, may and will be, still have peace, still have hope, do not have despair. Then they look at us and go, how can your life be so messy and you haven't given up yet? And we can say, it is because we see our God. I'm under no illusion that there will be many great challenges in chaplaincy. I have been witness to some dark times in the service, in close quarters. And also in that moment witnessed the strength of chaplains who had to fall back on God, their strength, and through it were able to do great things in dark times. At the start of this journey, I knew that there would be challenges from outside and even from within the church, where people would challenge what I believe, would challenge the relevance of my job, would challenge my theology and my faith. So I sat down and I wrote out in a book all of the passages that define my walk with Christ to this point, all of those key truths and promises that I hold dear. And one of the last ones that I wrote down is this one, which sits above my desk at home and will sit above my desk in Nowra, from Isaiah chapter 41. It says this, and I think there's a slide for it, that one. My friend, I took you from the ends of the earth, which, given my history and travelling around the world, is relevant. From its farthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, because I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I pray that all of us will be able to hold on to those promises in the dark times, in the challenging times, as we seek to live Christ in this world. I look forward to the next few years with a sense of excitement and anticipation. It will be a challenge, but it is one that God will walk with me in, as long as I trust in him. Let me pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you promise to walk with us. You have painted for us that lovely picture of, I remember the poem of the footprints in the sand, where you walk alongside us. Sometimes you carry us. And then in other versions, sometimes you drag us along a little bit. Lord, may we be quick to place our hand in yours. When the times are tough, may we be quick to rest in you. Quick to give up on our own strength. Quick to rely on yours. That we can trust your promise that your strength is made perfect in our weakness. Lord, I pray that you would, as you promise, continue to guide each one of us. That we would encourage each other. That we would strengthen each other. That we would uphold each other. That when one of us is afraid, another would say, "Fear not, because our God comes." That we would be a close and tight family of your children. And that as we trust in you, as we walk in you, as we follow you, that you would be glorified. That your kingdom would be expanded, and that people would come to know you. Lord, may your name be praised. Amen.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. Byron,
Yes.
This is your last official Sunday
Yes.
working for the Gungahlin Anglican Church.
Yes.
Now, people will probably be a little bit familiar with your journey to this point, but this, again, is an end of 2 years as working with us. But tell us what's going on to get you to this point and what happens next.
Short version. Journey into chaplaincy, I made formal inquiries a little over 6.5 years ago. There was a whole recruiting process, including discernment panels and assessments and officer selection boards and all of that. And then after that, began with 3 years of theological study, which I did here in Canberra at St Mark's National Theological Centre, doing a Bachelor of Theology, and then 2 years placement here in Gungahlin Anglican Church, basically on the job learning, so to speak, before commissioning and then heading out as a chaplain in the Royal Australian Navy.
Yep. When do you kick off?
16th of January, I start as the second chaplain to HMAS Albatross down in Nowra in the Shoalhaven.
Yep.
So a horrible part of the world too.
So you're going to be working down there, but you're not totally going to be disappearing from the parish. And if we ask you nicely, you might help out, do some things on occasion. But what's going to happen?
So due to a whole bunch of reasons, my family will remain here in Canberra for school and family and support and all that kind of things, and I will go and live on base in Nowra and work from base. So most weekends I will come back, and you may see me more Sundays than not, probably at the 10 a.m. service with my family. And I was assured at the 9:30 that if they said please and asked nicely, then you may see me do other things around on occasion.
On occasion. Or a few occasions.
A few occasions, yeah.
That's good.
Every now and then.
Multiple of occasions.
Special occasions. Let's place boundaries on this.
Something else happened on Thursday. Tell us about that.
Thursday I was commissioned as an officer in the Royal Australian Navy and appointed as a chaplain, which was a very nice end to this journey. I had my wife on one side and the Director of Chaplains on the other, which was very, very nice.
Yeah, excellent. It was a good event.
About a quarter of the people present were chaplains. It was quite disconcerting for everyone else. It was great.
It was good. Now, in terms of, again, what happens next, we talked a bit about that, but just want to think about the whole idea now, you kind of got a posting for 2 years.
Yeah.
But then things can happen with the Navy, and then tell us about what it's like if you get another posting with the ship and what that looks like.
Right, so through this process, there's obviously a expected return of service obligation, as we call it. So I have 4 years to run on that. The expectation is initially postings are supposed to be about 2 years, so do 2 years at Albatross. As I said this morning and have said on multiple occasions, throughout my career I have a history of being sent to interesting places at little to no notice. I do not expect that to change as a chaplain, primarily because of my previous experience. But after Nowra will be sea time. Usually probably posted to a ship as the ship's chaplain for a couple of years. So where the ship goes, I go. What the ship does, I do. Whether that's 6 to 9 month deployments or local work, running around, weekly running, whatever.
So when you go to sea, what happens with the family?
So emails are better these days, but yeah, I won't see my family while the ship's away. So emails where possible. I always recommend young sailors don't email regularly, which sounds odd because you have 24-hour internet access, generally speaking. But whenever anything interesting happens, they turn off all internet. So when people communicate daily and all of a sudden loved ones aren't getting that communication, then family stress levels go through the roof. So I always recommend to sailors, don't communicate regularly, communicate as randomly as possible so your family don't expect regular communication, so that when you can't communicate, they don't stress.
Yeah, and so if you're on a ship and you do a sea component, it's not, if you've got a 2 year posting to the ship, it's not 2 years at sea, is it?
No. Ship deployments on ships are usually between 6 to 9 months out of Australia.
Yep. And what happens when you come back after, or what do they do?
So the time between deployments is spent so for the sailors to do whatever courses they need to do to remain current or to progress in their careers. Mandatory and routine maintenance on the ship is carried out. Anything that's broken while they were away that they couldn't fix while they were away, that gets fixed in preparation for the next time going away. Usually before and after a deployment, they will make as much effort as possible to allow sailors to go back to their families for a week or so. See how we go. Yep,
cool. Some quite challenging. I said this morning, I had a friend who was a chaplain, went to Afghanistan for 9 months, and I said, look, how'd your family, or how'd your wife cope? How'd your family cope while you were away? And he said, disturbingly well.
Yeah, as I said this morning, God has seen gracious to grant most of those serving men strong and capable wives. And then the challenge becomes, once we come back after months away, of working out where we fit into this family life that has just progressed without us for months on end. Yeah.
No, that's good. Well, Byron's about to share from God's Word, but I want to say publicly thank you, Byron, for the last couple of years and all of your inputs. Byron, as you probably picked up, has been key to pastoring and running the 6 p.m. service. He's also been very active with the youth group and helping to make sure that happens, and week in, week out. But there's also been a whole heap of behind-the-scene things that he's done that you're probably not aware of, like helping get the new website up and running, which has probably got about 50 hours of work behind the scenes in getting it to that point. And more, yes, okay, yeah. Getting a new internet server for the parish to work from, setting up even the little electronic donation devices that we use now for sausage sizzles and different things. Byron was instrumental in getting those things. So thank you, and many, many more things, to be honest. Things that either I didn't have time for or the capability to do. So we're very thankful for your inputs and the impact that they have had. And we will be sad not to have you on the staff team, but happy to have you still connected with the parish.
For sure.
Please big clap for Byron. Yeah. There is one thing I was going to mention too, and the other thing I was going to mention is that because Byron is going, we need to get helpers to do other things. So if you can read a Bible, if you can say a prayer, if you have some sort of musical ability that exceeds mine, which I'm sure many of you do, if you maybe even have led a service at some time in the past, there's a whole range of things, and we're probably going to have about a 6-month period of time before a replacement for Byron lands. So if you feel convicted by God that you should help out in some other way, then you need to come and talk to me, send me an email or text so that we can build our team to get ready for the new year.
And you missed a very important skill, the ability to do that.
Yes, that is true, yeah. Turn sausages. Cook sausages, thank you.
Yeah.
Suppers are also to be encouraged, and pressing the button on the PowerPoint to make the PowerPoint work is also a very important skill. So, right.
Indeed.
And we'll find out how much Byron really did behind the scenes in the next month, I reckon. So thanks, Byron.
Good fun. Let me just restart the recording and then we'll get into it.